I thought I knew what family meant until the moment my brother stood up at Christmas dinner and declared I was finally getting cut off. The champagne in my glass caught the candlelight as I sat there, surrounded by the people who were supposed to love me. My startup had just failed 6 months ago. My graphic design business, the one I'd poured 3 years into, had collapsed under debt I couldn't see coming. They'd all watched it happen with barely concealed satisfaction. "Sarah's had enough time to figure things out," my brother Michael announced, his voice carrying that particular tone he used when he wanted to sound authoritative. He was a financial advisor, the golden child, the one who'd done everything right. Married at 26, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs outside Seattle. Everything our parents had dreamed of. My sister-in-law Jessica nodded enthusiastically beside him. "We've all been supporting her for years now. It's time she learned to stand on her own 2 feet. I looked down at my plate. The prime rib Mom had made looked expensive. Everything in this house looked expensive. The new furniture, the renovated kitchen, the Tesla in the driveway, all of it purchased in the last 2 years. "I think that's fair," Dad said, setting down his fork with that deliberate precision he used when making important pronouncements. He was retired now, had been for 3 years. Used to work in middle management at a logistics company. "Comfortable retirement," he always said. "Nothing fancy, but comfortable." Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. It wasn't comforting. "Sweetheart, we love you, but you're 32 now. We can't keep being your safety net forever." The thing was, I couldn't remember them ever actually being my safety net. When my startup was failing, I'd asked Dad for advice once. He'd told me that's what I got for trying something risky instead of getting a real job. When I'd needed a small loan to make payroll, Mom had said they couldn't possibly help. They had their own expenses to worry about. But they talked about supporting me constantly. At every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction. Poor Sarah. Still struggling. Still dependent on family. Still the one who needed everyone's help. "I agree," Michael continued, warming to his topic. "Sarah needs to learn financial responsibility. No more handouts. No more bailouts. Starting January 1st, we're done." I felt something vibrate in my pocket. My phone. I ignored it. That's a little harsh, isn't it? This from Aunt Carol, Dad's sister, who'd driven in from Portland. "Sarah's going through a difficult time." "A difficult time that's lasted years," Jessica cut in. "We have our own children to think about, our own futures. We can't keep subsidizing Sarah's lifestyle choices forever." My lifestyle choices. I lived in a studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood. I drove a 12-year-old Honda. I bought my clothes at Target. Some lifestyle. The phone vibrated again. And again. "Excuse me," I said quietly, pulling it out. The screen showed 3 text messages from Deborah Chen. She was the estate attorney who'd been handling my grandmother's affairs since she passed away 8 months ago. The same grandmother who'd raised me half the time because Mom and Dad were always too busy, too stressed, too overwhelmed with Michael. The first message made my heart stop. "Sarah, I need you to approve the January disbursements. Your father is requesting an increase to $35,000 per month. Your mother wants $30,000. Michael is asking for $45,000 for the down payment on the new lake house." I stared at the words, reading them 3 times before they made sense. The second message, "Please confirm by tomorrow. Also, your brother has been asking questions about the trust structure. I haven't disclosed your role per your grandmother's instructions, but he's persistent." The third message, "The annual distribution is $1.2 million this year, up from $960,000 last year. Let me know your decisions." I looked up slowly. They were all still talking, their voices washing over me like white noise. Michael was explaining something about tough love. Jessica was agreeing enthusiastically. Mom looked sad but determined. Dad looked righteous. None of them had any idea. My grandmother had established the trust 30 years ago. She'd been a widow who invested her late husband's life insurance money brilliantly through the tech boom of the 90s. By the time she died, that trust was worth $30 million. The terms were specific. The money went to her descendants, distributed at the trustee's discretion. She could have split it evenly, could have given control to my father, could have set up automatic distributions. Instead, she'd named me as trustee when I turned 25. Only me, not my father, who she'd always said was too easily influenced. Not Michael, who she'd called entitled from the time he was 16. Just me. She'd told me the day she signed the papers, made me promise not to tell anyone. "They'll come for you if they know," she'd said, holding my hand in her hospital bed. "They'll make you feel guilty, make you feel small, but you're the only one who really sees people, Sarah. The only one who cares about more than money." I'd been giving them money for 7 years. Since I was 25, Dad's comfortable retirement was $25,000 a month from the trust. Mom's shopping habits, her spa days, her friends' lunches, all funded by distributions I approved without question. Michael's house, his cars, his kids' private school, half of it was trust money. They didn't know. They thought it was their money, earned and saved and invested wisely. Dad thought his pension and 401k were just that good. Michael thought his financial planning business was more successful than it was. Mom thought Dad was just good at managing money. None of them had ever asked where it came from. They'd just spent it. And the whole time, they'd been telling everyone I was the failure, the one who needed family support, the one who couldn't make it on her own. "Sarah, are you even listening?" Michael's voice cut through my thoughts. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The Rolex on his wrist that I'd approved funding for, the designer suit that probably cost more than my rent, the arrogance that came from thinking he'd earned all of it himself. "I'm listening," I said quietly. "Good. Then you understand. After the holidays, you're on your own. We're not your bank anymore. Got it? We're not your bank anymore." The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. "I understand," I said, unlocking my phone. Under the table, where they couldn't see, I opened my secure email and typed a message to Deborah. "Deny all distribution requests from Dad, Mom, and Michael, effective immediately. Begin trust modification process as discussed. Schedule meeting for December 27th. I hit send and set the phone down. "I'm glad we're all in agreement," Dad said, visibly relieved. "This is for your own good, Sarah. You'll thank us one day." "I'm sure I will," I said. Mom started clearing plates. Jessica launched into a story about their kids' Christmas presents. Michael checked his phone, probably looking at real estate listings for that lake house he wasn't going to buy. I excused myself to the bathroom and called Deborah. She answered on the first ring. "I got your email. Can you do it?" "Absolutely. The trust terms give you complete discretion over distributions. You're also authorized to modify the distribution schedule with 30 days' notice. I'll send the certified letters tomorrow." "What will they get?" "Legally? Nothing. The trust isn't theirs. They have no ownership stake. You've been making distributions as gifts, which you're empowered to do, but you're equally empowered to stop." "And my grandmother's letter?" "I have it in my safe. The one she left for this exact scenario. Do you want me to include it in the certified mail?" I thought about it. Grandma's final letter, the one she'd written to be opened if they ever turned on me. She'd known they would. She'd known them better than I wanted to admit. "Yes, include it." "Sarah, are you sure? This is going to cause significant disruption to their lives." I thought about Michael's sneer, Dad's disappointment, Mom's pitying looks. All the years of being treated like I was less than, like I was failing, like I needed their charity, when I was the one signing the checks the entire time. "I'm sure." I went back to the table. Dessert was being served, Mom's famous cheesecake. Everyone was laughing at something Jessica had said. Michael was pouring himself another glass of wine from the bottle that probably cost $200. That I'd paid for, through the trust distribution that covered their grocery and entertainment expenses. "Sarah, you're just in time," Mom said. "We were just talking about our New Year's plans. Your father and I are thinking about Cabo. Michael and Jessica are looking at that new resort in Hawaii." "Sounds wonderful," I said. "You should take a vacation too," Jessica said, not unkindly. "Even if it's just a weekend somewhere local, you need to take care of yourself." "That's good advice," I agreed. We finished dessert. I helped clean up, declining offers to stay over like I always did. I drove home to my studio apartment, listening to Christmas music on the radio, thinking about everything that was about to change. The certified letters arrived on December 27th, as Deborah had promised. My phone started ringing at 8 in the morning. First Dad, then Mom, then Michael 3 times in a row. I let them all go to voicemail. The first voicemail was Dad, confused. "Sarah, honey, There's been some mistake. We got this letter from an attorney saying our trust distributions are being terminated. Must be a clerical error. Can you call us? The second was Mom, concerned. Sweetheart, did you get a strange letter from someone named Deborah Chen? About a trust? We don't understand what this is about. The third was Michael, angry. Sarah, what the hell is going on? Some lawyer is saying you're cutting off our distributions? What distributions? Call me back right now. I deleted them all and called Deborah. They got the letters, I said. I assume so. I've also received 3 calls from your brother and 1 from your father. I haven't returned them. What did my grandmother's letters say? I heard papers rustling. Do you want me to read it? Please. Deborah cleared her throat. My dear family, if you're reading this, it means you've treated Sarah exactly the way I feared you would. You've taken everything she gave you and made her feel worthless for giving it. You've spent money you didn't earn and criticized her for not earning enough. You've built your lives on her generosity and repaid her with contempt. The trust was mine to structure as I wished. I chose Sarah as trustee because she was the only one who loved people more than money, the only one who gave without counting the cost. If you're angry, look in the mirror. You did this to yourselves. With disappointment. Margaret, I closed my eyes. Even from beyond the grave, Grandma understood. Thank you, Deborah. What do you want me to tell them if they call back? Tell them to contact me directly. They did. All 3 of them showed up at my apartment 2 days later. I'd been expecting it. I'd also been expecting the anger, the accusations, the demands. What I hadn't expected was how small they looked standing in my doorway. You need to fix this, Michael said immediately, pushing past me into the apartment. That lawyer is saying you control Grandma's trust? That's insane. Dad's the oldest. He should be in charge. The trust is structured according to Grandma's wishes, I said calmly. I'm the trustee. I have been since I was 25. Mom's face went white. You've been in charge of the money? All this time? Yes, but we thought... She trailed off, looking at Dad. Dad looked stunned. Actually stunned. The distributions, the monthly deposits. That was you? That was the trust, which I administer, yes. Then why? Michael was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. Why are you cutting us off? What did we do? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. You declared I was getting cut off at Christmas dinner. You said you weren't my bank anymore. Remember? That was different, Jessica spoke up. We were trying to help you, give you tough love so you'd finally get your act together. I see. And how much tough love were you planning to give me before you used my money for the down payment on your lake house? Michael's face flushed red. That's not your money. Actually, it is. The trust is mine to administer. Grandma left specific instructions that I was to distribute funds at my sole discretion. I've been choosing to support all of you generously for 7 years. You're welcome, by the way. You can't do this, Dad said, and his voice was shaking. We've built our lives around this income. Your mother's car payment, our mortgage refinance, Michael's business expenses. We need this money. I needed my family not to humiliate me at Christmas dinner and tell me I was a burden they couldn't wait to cut off. But we don't always get what we need, do we? Mom started crying, real tears streaming down her face. Sarah, please, we didn't mean it like that. We love you. We were just worried about you. Funny way of showing it. We made a mistake, Dad said. A terrible mistake. But you can't punish us like this. What about our expenses, our commitments? The same expenses and commitments I had when my business failed, and you told me that's what I got for being irresponsible? Those expenses? The silence was deafening. You never asked for help, Mom said weakly. I did. Once. Dad told me to figure it out myself, that real businesses don't need family bailouts. Dad's face was gray now. I didn't know. About the trust, I thought we were living on our own money. And if you had known, would you have been kinder, more supportive, or would you have just felt entitled to even more? No one answered. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my voice was steady even though my hands were shaking. Your distributions are ended permanently. The trust will continue to grow and will eventually be distributed according to new terms I'm establishing with Deborah. Those terms do not include monthly payments to any of you. You can't, Michael shouted. That's our inheritance. Grandma left it for all of us. Grandma left it in a trust with me as the sole trustee. She left you her jewelry, her furniture, and her photo albums. The trust was always separate. She made that very clear in her will. You can contest it if you want, but Deborah assures me the terms are ironclad. This is because of what we said at Christmas? Jessica asked. You're destroying our lives over one dinner? No, this is because of every dinner, every phone call, every time you made me feel small while spending money I was giving you, every time you criticized my choices while making worse ones with my resources, every time you treated me like I was the failure of the family while I was literally funding your success. Mom was sobbing openly now. Dad looked like he might be sick. Michael was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I can't believe you do this to family, he said finally. I learned from the best. They left. They threatened legal action. They called other family members, tried to turn them against me. Aunt Carol called me 2 days later, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Your father just told me you've been secretly controlling a $30 million trust and cutting them off, she wheezed. Please tell me it's true. It's true. Oh, Sarah, your grandmother would be so proud. She told me years ago she'd set it up this way, made me swear not to tell anyone. Said you were the only one with any sense. You knew? Of course I knew. Margaret told me everything. She also told me your father would try to guilt you eventually. Has he started yet? They all showed up at my apartment. Let me guess. Crying, threats. How could you do this to family? Exactly. Carol laughed again. Stand firm, sweetheart. They'll survive. They'll just have to survive like normal people instead of secret trust fund babies who thought they'd earned it all themselves. Over the next 3 months, I watched my family's carefully constructed lives fall apart like dominoes. Dad and Mom had to sell the house. Turns out, when your retirement is actually a trust distribution and not a pension, you can't afford a 4-bedroom home in a good school district. They moved into a 2-bedroom condo. Mom had to get a part-time job at a boutique. She told people she was bored in retirement. I heard through Aunt Carol she cried the first week. Michael's financial planning business took a hit when clients found out he'd been living beyond his means and hadn't actually been as successful as he appeared. Several left. He and Jessica put their house on the market. The lake house plan disappeared. Jessica went back to work full-time. They posted on Facebook about downsizing, about choosing a simpler life, about realizing what really mattered. The comments were supportive. No one knew the truth. I didn't gloat. I didn't call them. I didn't rub it in. I just lived my life. The graphic design business was actually starting to recover. Slowly, quietly, without the pressure of feeling like I had to prove something to people who would never be impressed. I took on clients I liked, projects that interested me. I wasn't making a fortune, but I was making enough. I also started doing something I'd never done before. I started using trust money for myself. Not extravagantly, not wastefully. But I bought a better car. I moved into a nicer apartment with actual closet space. I took a vacation to Ireland by myself, and it was the most peaceful 2 weeks of my life. Deborah had helped me restructure the trust. The new terms specified that I would receive a salary as trustee, something I'd never taken before. The rest would grow until I was 40, at which point I could decide on final distribution terms. Maybe to charity, maybe to causes I cared about, maybe to family members who'd never treated me like garbage. Not to people who only valued me when they thought I was beneath them. 6 months after Christmas, Mom called. Not Dad, not Michael. Just Mom. Hi, sweetheart, she said, and her voice was quiet. Hi, Mom. I'm calling to apologize. Really apologize. Not to ask for money or to try to change your mind. Just to say I'm sorry. I waited. You were right, she continued. About everything. We treated you terribly. We made you feel small because it made us feel big. We spent your money and criticized how you spent yours. We took credit for being successful when you were the one making it possible. Yes, I miss you, she said, and now she was crying. I miss my daughter. Not the trustee, not the person with the money, just you. And I understand if you don't miss me. I understand if you're done with us. We earned that. I looked out my window at the Seattle skyline, thinking about all the years I'd spent trying to make them proud, trying to be good enough, trying to be worth loving. I miss you too, I said finally. But I don't miss who I was when I was around you. I know. Maybe someday we can figure out what a relationship looks like where you don't need something from me and I don't need your approval. "I'd like that," Mom whispered. We talked for a few more minutes, carefully, honestly, without any of the usual subtext. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years when it came to my family. Hope. Not hope that things would go back to how they were. Hope that maybe they could become something better, something real. Dad sent me a letter 3 weeks later. A real, handwritten letter. In it, he admitted that he'd felt like a failure his whole life, that he'd needed to feel superior to someone, and I'd been the easiest target. He apologized. He didn't ask for anything. Michael took longer. 4 months after our confrontation, he showed up at my apartment with coffee and no Jessica. "I was a complete ass," he said, standing in my doorway. "Yes, I don't have an excuse. I just wanted you to know I'm working on figuring out why I needed to put you down to feel good about myself." "Therapy?" "Therapy," he confirmed. "Turns out I have some things to work through. Don't we all?" He laughed, but it was sad. "Can I come in? Just to talk. Not about money, just as your brother. If you still want a brother." I thought about it. Really thought about it. About who I wanted to be, what kind of family I wanted, what I was willing to risk for the possibility of something better. "Yes," I said, and stepped aside. It's been a year now. We have dinner once a month, all of us. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes old patterns try to resurface. But there's something different now. They see me. Really see me. Not as the failure. Not as the success. Not as the trustee or the money or the disappointment. Just as Sarah. They've built their own lives now. Smaller lives, maybe, but honest ones. Dad does consulting work. Mom loves her boutique job. Michael's business is smaller but stable. They drive normal cars, live in normal houses, take normal vacations. They're happier than they were before, even if they won't admit it. The trust is still there, growing quietly in the background. Sometimes I think about what to do with it eventually. Sometimes I don't think about it at all. Because the most valuable thing I got from my grandmother wasn't the money, it was the knowledge that I deserved better than how they'd treated me, that I was worth more than how they'd made me feel, that I could choose to walk away from people who diminished me, even if those people were family, especially if those people were family. I still do graphic design. I still live in my nice but not extravagant apartment. I still drive my sensible car. But now I do it because I want to, not because I'm trying to prove something or because I feel like I don't deserve more. The money is there if I need it, but I've discovered I need it less than I thought. What I needed was to know my worth, to understand that my value isn't in what I provide to others or how useful I am or how much I shrink myself to make other people comfortable. My value is inherent. It was always inherent. I just had to cut off the people who couldn't see it before I could see it myself. My family isn't perfect now. We're not some heartwarming redemption story where everything's magically better, but we're real, we're honest, and when we sit down to dinner, I don't feel like I'm less than anyone at the table. That's worth more than $30 million. Though I'll admit, having the $30 million doesn't hurt. Last Christmas, we had dinner at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad and wine that cost $12 a bottle. Michael brought his kids, who are sweet when they're not being told they're better than everyone else. Mom brought flowers. Dad brought an apology for last year, unprompted. At the end of the night, as they were leaving, Michael hugged me. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For loving us enough to let us fall. I didn't understand it then, but I do now." I hugged him back. "You're welcome." After they left, I stood in my apartment surrounded by dirty dishes and leftover food and the debris of a family gathering that had actually felt like family, and I thought about my grandmother. "I hope I made you proud, Grandma," I whispered to the empty room. Somewhere, I like to think she was smiling, and for the first time in my life, I was smiling too.